How do I, 28M, approach my now wife, 27F, about my feelings from our wedding night? This past weekend I got married for the first time. I don't see myself as much of a romantic idealist, but I definitely had some preconceived ideas of how my wedding night might go. Now that the wedding is over, I just feel upset when I think back to our wedding night. I am stuck in a bad headspace because it is all we talk about right now. I know my wife had a great time, and the last thing I want is for her to lose that feeling if she were to really know how I feel. To give some context, the wedding was relatively small, approximately equals 50 people, and kind of a destination wedding. Most guests had to drive 8+ hours or fly there, including us. Since it was so small, the guest list was mostly limited to family. She insisted on inviting 4 of her friends and their significant others. This meant there wasn't space for me to invite any friends. We both had family bail late, 12 weeks prior, and I could have attempted to invite a friend or two, but I hesitated and never did. My wife is very outgoing and I am definitely the introvert between us, and large social settings give me some anxiety. The wedding was great up until the cocktail hour, which we attended. At this point my wife was just moving around, chatting with anyone and everyone. It was a small wedding, so we could have easily stayed together, but she made it impossible. She'd just finish her conversation and walk off. This went on the whole night, which did not help my anxiety. Dinner came around and we went to take a couple pictures with the photographer. We got back and made our plates well after everyone. Most people were done eating. It was cool and windy, so I gave her my jacket to wear. Mid-dinner she got up without saying a word and walked to far side to chat with friends. I figured she'd come back, but she didn't. So I sat and finished my dinner alone. I was chatting with someone and she finally came back, but without my jacket. She had set it on a chair, and when I went to find it, it had been knocked on the ground. She chose to eat very little all day, and almost nothing at dinner. So by this point she was pretty drunk and she was getting hard to rationalize with. Dancing was next. I tried my best to get out on the dance floor, but she just did her own thing again. I definitely spun her a couple times, but for the most part, if I got near her she would just dance for a second or two and then move away. I finally got tired and frustrated, so I sat down at my seat and just watched for a while. I regret this because I should have just made the best of that time and at least chatted with other guests or danced with other people. Things wrapped up and people began to leave after the send-off. But a bunch of us were planning to go back to a rental house to hang out since it wasn't that late. She obviously wanted to get out of her dress before leaving. So we went to our honeymoon suite to change, and some of her family, including her mom, followed us. There, they came right on in. And her mom even helped her get out of her wedding dress while her aunt, uncle and cousin chatted. I love her family, but I feel like that should have been our moment. This frustration definitely stems from me having preconceived romantic ideas. But why would her family follow us back to our room to change? These memories upset me and frustrate me now. I don't know how to approach her and talk about my feelings without upsetting her and possibly ruining her memory of the night. There were obviously things I could have done to make the night better for myself. And I don't blame her for my feelings. I just hate that the wedding is all we talk about right now. I wish it was already well behind us. TLDR. Wedding night was frustrating and not how I imagined it. All we do now is talk about the wedding with friends, and I am struggling to internally cope with the frustration of missed opportunities and lack of participation. I wondered if this was an arranged marriage to start with, as you both seem to have little understanding of the other person's needs and there is a complete lack of communication. Now it appears you have been together for 4 years. Work on that communication, both of you. Maybe see a couples therapist. I see everyone else commented about your friends and the communication issue, so I will pass on that. But dude, you need to learn to set boundaries and ask for what you need in a healthy way. Your wife's behavior is not ideal, but your resentment comes mostly from your unspoken needs not being met and choosing to just stay alone on the side and grow your resentment while she had fun. If you had discussed your expectations and how both of you can meet them and include each other in things you want to do, all of this would not be a problem. As a fellow anxiety person, I really recommend therapy and working on setting your boundaries, recognizing your needs and so on. It helps me a lot in building better relationships and not letting my anxiety take over my mind. Bit of advice. When you do eventually bring this up, try to frame it about how excited you were and how excited you are for the future and to make new memories. If you just complain and don't soften it, you're gonna have a bad time. Getting out of a wedding dress can need more than one person. I expect her family though of it as just changing clothes and helping her with the dress, whilst she was probably quite drunk. You wanted something different from the occasion and that is okay. But since you said nothing and did nothing, it is really hard for people to know what you wanted to do. Communication is really important here. There's a lot here, but there's one part one kinda want to start with, because it seems important and relevant to everything else. She insisted on inviting 4 of her friends and their significant others. This meant there wasn't space for me to invite any friends. How did this conversation go? Did you say you'd like to have space to invite some friends of yours and she denied you? Or did you not bring it up? Socialite mode on. It takes experience to learn to temper it when with a partner who isn't wired same. Reminds me of a would you rather question. Would you rather have a partner who says, enjoy the party, let's split the room and go home together, or B, attaches themselves to your hip the whole party? Honestly, I wouldn't bring it up now. The next time you are at a party and she's in socializing mode, you can talk to her then. Frame it as different styles of socializing. This past weekend I got married for the first time. Live and learn. Maybe the second one will be better. Sorry. I could not get past this comment as it really sets your mindset. Was her behavior a one-off? Or does she normally leave you to mingle with her friends? If you did not want her mother there, you could have told her and the aunt and uncle to leave. You need to use your voice. Before I scroll down and see all the delete a lawyer, break a gym, face up, or whatever posts, I'll just say that this isn't the disaster you think it is. You just had different expectations about how the reception would go. Basically, it sounds like you had a script in your head, and she had no script at all, but just decided this was another party and a chance to see people she won't get a chance to see again for a while. It sounds a little like she doesn't quite understand your introversion and social anxiety. You're newlyweds. You still have a lot to learn about each other. Give it time. If you're back in a year posting about how she's insensitive to your issues, I might be joining the dump her brigade. But for now I don't think this is a disaster. Okay, now I'm going to read what other people wrote. I've always thought that the wedding is pretty tiring for the bride and groom. They're the people who least get to enjoy the party. I mean, etiquette demands they make the rounds around the guests, talking to everyone, thanking them for their presence, asking if they need anything, etc. It seems to me your fiancé was doing just that. Her duty as a hostess. You should be doing the rounds with her, not being sit at a corner pouting. As for not eating a lot and being drunk, that could easily be a consequence of all the work and anxiety and demands put on her shoulders for this day. If you were stressed, imagine how she should also be with all the expectations about the party. For the dance, why didn't you two rehearse a dance? It's what is usually done. And for removing the dress, people here already commented how is a complicated task. So with that in mind, consider how you want to talk to her about your feelings on the wedding night. This makes me really sad. You definitely should have said something instead of letting it pile up and get worse. But also I think your wife should have been more considerate. At least checked in on you and make sure you could invite your own friends as well. Both of you could have done better. It's going to be difficult to start the conversation, but you really should. It's important. Good luck. Maybe I'll be the dissenter here, but I don't really see much point in popping off about how frustrated you were. If I were in your position, I'd just suggest having a do-over wedding night where you both just focus on each other instead of dwelling on your actual wedding and how much you were upset, frustrated. Basically, hey, I really wanted us to get to spend more romantic time together and didn't expect things to be so chaotic and busy, and suggest planning a nice little night together. If you approach it and complain, I think you're going to poison your wife's memories of the day and just upset her. You can't undo the event. And honestly, it's not like you were treated poorly, dismissed, abused. You just had some expectations that you didn't communicate that didn't materialize. I say this not to make you feel like your feelings are invalid, by the way. But when I read the post, it seems to me that you didn't speak up about your feelings, expectations. And you recognize that you missed opportunities to invite friends. You wished you would have just socialized more. And you are admittedly an introvert. This way you can both have something more like what you imagined while also opening the door to communicate about how to approach future events. Introvert with an extrovert can be tough. From what I can tell, you are very passive and she is very active. You didn't state your wants, needs or wishes. When spaces opened up and you could have invited friends and see if any could make it, you didn't. When you wanted her to spend time with you you didn't voice it. Now it is bothering you, but you don't seem to want to approach it or know how. She should absolutely be more attentive to you and check in on you. Communications goes both ways, and leaving your jacket was not nice. If you don't say what you want and need from a person, chances are you won't get it. Even an attentive partner isn't a mind reader. And if you don't speak up, you don't give her a chance to learn what's important to you and what you need from her as a partner, which doesn't give her a chance to meet your needs. This is absolutely not just on you. It's odd to me that she didn't make an effort to check in on you as well. I think you both need to have a talk about needs, wants, and how to communicate them to each other in a healthy and productive way. You need to relax. She got a little drunk, forgot to bring your jacket back, and it got knocked down, and was being a social butterfly during her wedding. Instead of sulking, you could have equally been enjoying time with people who were there to celebrate this next chapter in your life. I don't know, sounds like she was being a happy bride, and you were your own worst enemy that night. As a former wedding photographer and someone with a great interest in wedding statistics, I think it's something like only 5% of marriages are consummated on the wedding night. Wedding days are long and tiring. People eat too much or too little. They party. They talk to everyone. They are buzzing, or they just want to get off their very sore feet. You sound like you romanticized it, but that's not a bad thing. The world can do with a little more romance. Time to have a newlywed dinner with just the two of you. In all brutal honesty, sounds like you are a doormat that gets mad when everyone walks on him. Being assertive does not mean being controlling. Say what you want, need. Accept how people respond, and then you act accordingly. If you can clearly assert your emotional needs and chooses to treat them as unimportant, then go find someone who will prioritize you. But do not act as if everything is okay and then get mad when everyone thinks you are okay with what is happening. I got married almost 2 years ago, and how I acted at my wedding sounds almost identical to how your wife acted. And I'm the introvert in my marriage, and my husband is very much an extrovert. I felt socially obligated to make small talk with every guest and made rounds at every table. I missed dinner as a result, and also got unintentionally very drunk, and spent very little time with my husband. It wasn't exactly what I had envisioned either, because my husband is my best friend and I would choose a million times over to spend time with him over anyone else. But I kept getting sucked into conversations, or dealing with questions from the reception people, that by the time the reception was over, we had like no time together. I'm not saying this is how your wife is feeling, but I will say if she cares about your feelings, you should bring it up. Don't be accusatory, but you could even just start it by saying something small like, "I really missed you at the reception. We didn't get to spend much time together," and see where it goes. I do know I would want to know if my husband felt like you feel. Good luck. Up. This was very sad to read, and unfortunately this is on you. You need to work on setting boundaries and communicating your feelings. Minus the jacket on the ground. Everything else you described is a typical wedding night. If you wanted to invite your friends, walk around to guests together, have a moment with just her in the honeymoon suite, or feel uncomfortable about any of it, you need to speak up. She can't read your mind. Personally, I wouldn't mention it to her, but instead focus on ways to improve your relationship in the future. I honestly don't know anyone who looks back at their wedding and had a perfect or even good time. What were you expecting? You won't win anything by telling her how you feel about the wedding, but you might lose a lot. So don't do it. If she is happy with the wedding, don't ruin it for her. You will regret this. Instead, work on yourself and how to communicate your needs and boundaries so that this won't happen again in any other situation. There will be plenty, especially as an introverted person with an extroverted partner. Don't get me wrong. I understand your frustration, and she clearly did not pay attention to your needs. But well, that's the way a lot of women, especially the extroverted ones, behave. You will have to learn to deal with it and how to gain situational sovereignty. For example, in complimenting her family out of your wedding suite instead of just bearing it all, and being frustrated and angry when it's already too late.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.